Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. We are going to be making these really easy yarn scrap earrings today. They're going to be really quick. You basically just need to know how to make a pom-pom and then attach it to some jewelry making supplies that I bought at my local Joann store. We're going to start by making a pom-pom with my Clover pom-pom maker here. As you can see, I'm wrapping it around the first leg. We're going to hold those two arches together on one leg of the pom-pom maker and just wrap our yarn around tightly. Don't pull it too tight where it's stretching the yarn, but make sure that it is nice and taut. And we're just going to wrap around and kind of move these strands over so that they're all nice and snug on there. And we're going to just wrap around until we've reached the other side of the arch. And we're going to keep repeating this back and forth until we've gone back and forth about 8 times across this arch. So just keep going ahead and wrapping. You're going to just need some scrap yarn for this. You can buy a skein at Joann also of your favorite color of yarn or favorite texture. I do recommend a worsted weight yarn, which is kind of in between the really lightweight yarns and the bulky weight. You can experiment with this with different weights, but the worsted seemed to work best for me. But you're not going to need a ton of yarn for this. You're just going to need to make 2 smaller pom-poms. And also, I do want to mention that the Clover pom-pom makers I have are the small size set. So it comes with 2 different pom-pom makers. I'm going to use both sizes in this video. This is the larger of the 2 in that small set. If you click the link in the description box below this video, you will see that I have the link to the blog post and I have the exact measurements of these pom-pom makers. I have links and everything to all the materials there. So if you're confused or you need further help with where to get these pom-pom makers, I have everything you need listed in great detail at that link below. So once we finish the first side, fold that in, snip the end, fold out the second side, and we're going to just repeat again on this second side. So just doing the same thing, try and get an even amount of yarn on both arms of the pom-pom maker. And once you finish wrapping, we're just going to fold this second set of arms in as well, snip the end of that yarn. And now we just need to cut along the guide on our pom-pom maker. So try to cut right down the center here. You can see how I'm doing that. Make sure your scissors are nice and sharp. I picked up these new Fiskars scissors at Joann and they are super sharp and perfect for this project. So I've snipped down one side, go ahead and snip the other side, going slow and just being careful to snip all of those strands. Now we need to cut another length of yarn, maybe 8 to 12 inches or so. And then we're just going to tie that around the center of our pom-pom maker. So it has a guide here, and we're just going to kind of loop that yarn through the guide, and we're going to tie it as tight as we can get it right down the center there. Before you finish tying it in a knot, flip that guy over, tie again on the other side. This is just going to really help to secure. Pull it as tight as you can, and now we can go ahead and knot that off. I'm going to flip it over and knot it one more time on the other side. Make sure these other strands are out of the way. Tie it real tight and knot it down. Now for our first pair of earrings, we're going to be making 3 different styles of earrings. For our first pair, we don't need to leave those tails super long. So when we take this guy out of the pom-pom maker, go ahead and unfold those arms, pull apart the center, and our pom-pom should pop out just like that. Now we can set this pom-pom maker aside. And we need to just kind of fluff out our pom-pom and give it a good trim. It needs a little bit of a haircut. It's looking a little rough right now. But it's a really nice starting point, and it's a lot easier to use the pom-pom makers than to use your hands or some other kind of makeshift device. I find that they are totally worth the investment. So kind of give this a good rub, fluff it out a little bit, and now we're going to go back in with those really sharp scissors, and we're going to trim off all of the excess. So we want to get this as close to a nice perfect sphere as possible, but just kind of go slow and trim anything that looks out of place, cut back any areas that look too ovalish, and we just want to take our time and get this trimmed down nicely using those super sharp scissors. The sharper your scissors, the better. If you are using dull scissors, it's going to kind of pull at the pom-pom and make everything a lot harder. So go ahead and pick up a nice new fresh pair or sharpen the scissors that you already have. So like I said, for our first style of earrings, we're not going to need to leave these tails real long, the tails that I'm holding, but for the purposes of trimming down the pom-pom, it's nice to have them to hold on to. And for our other styles later on in this video, you are going to need to leave those tails a bit longer. So depending on what style you're going for, you may need to keep the tails or you may want to just go ahead and snip them. So now this pom-pom is looking much, much better than it did originally. I'm just going to kind of keep going back in here and snipping. You can see that I'm not snipping big chunks. I'm really just kind of trimming the areas that look kind of crazy. So for our first style of earring, we're just going to use this earring hoop. This is the brand I found at Joann. They are really, really easy to use. It's called Hildy and Joe. And I'm just going to thread this through the center of my pom-pom. Remember that string that we tied around the center of our pom-pom while it was still on the maker? We want to try to feel around for that and thread it through. And that's all there is to these perfect pom-pom hoops. Now we can go ahead and wear those just like that and they're done. Wasn't that easy? I mean, come on guys, it doesn't get easier than that. Perfect yarn scrap project. Now for style number 2, we're going to get a little bit more fancy. We have our pom-pom all done. We left our tails on this one, so we still have these tails going on. I'm going to grab some ear wires. So these are called ear wires, also by Hildy and Joe from Joann, and they just have a little bend on one end, and I'm going to thread a tapestry needle or a yarn needle with one of those long tails from my pom-pom. I'm going to thread it through the little eye or the little curve at the bottom of my ear wire. I'm going to tighten that down, and then I'm just going to tie these tails in a really tight knot. What this is going to do is it's going to secure the ear wire to the pom-pom itself. Now, after I've knotted this off and I feel like it's secure, I'm just going to trim those tails to blend in with the edge of my pom-pom. So now at this point, we have a secured ear wire to our pom-pom. We can go back in and trim a little bit just around that ear wire to make sure everything looks nice and symmetrical. And you can see here that this is pretty firmly attached. Knotting it off is really all you need to do to really get that good knot there. Now what we're going to do next is something really fun. We're going to add on an earring post, and we need to do that by using our needle nose pliers, and we're going to just bend the top of that ear wire to form another loop. Hopefully you guys can see that clearly. Now we're just going to slip on an earring post. The earring posts that I got are also Hildy and Joe from Joann, and they have a little jump ring already attached to the bottom of the earring post. And I'm just going to kind of slip that on and tighten down that loop on the top of the ear wire using my pliers. You might need to fidget with it a little bit and kind of squish things around to get it tightened on there, but really all you're doing is looping the ear wire through and tightening it down. And if you look closely, you can see that I'm basically just squishing this with the needle nose pliers to get it tight and on that earring post, because we don't want this slipping off while we're wearing them. And now we can see that that earring post is nice and attached, and we have these cute little drop style pom-pom earrings. Now you can leave it like this, but I'm going to add another level of flair to it just because why not? I grabbed these cute little pins that are made by Doris from Joann. They have tons of different styles. They're really, really cute. I loved these little kind of galantines looking champagne ones. So I'm going to use this little champagne bottle. I'm going to use my needle nose pliers to get the back off of my pin. So I'm just kind of gripping it and twisting and working it back and forth until the metal comes loose, and it should detach pretty easily. So now I have just the flat piece of my enamel pin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this onto my earring post. So I'm going to use a little bit of E6000. They also have this at Joann's. Everything I'm using they have at Joann. So just add a little dab to any of the flat part of your pin. You could also use a sanding bit to sand down the metal on the back of your pin and make everything completely flat, but just for the sake of time, I decided to just go ahead and glue it down on the flat piece of that champagne bottle. So you just want to hold this in place. I'm just pressing the head of my earring post down into that glue, and you're going to want to let it dry for several hours or overnight once it kind of sets enough for you to let go. So that is style number 2. Now, moving on to style number 3, this is the most complex, but don't get scared, it's still really easy. This is our double pom hoop. So basically, we made a larger and a smaller pom based on those two different pom-pom maker sizes in a small set from Clover that I got from Joanne as well. I've already attached an ear wire that we used in the last style to my larger pom-pom via the same method that I used before by tying on with those tails. I did leave tails on the smaller pom-pom as well because what we're going to do now is we're going to create that loop just like we did before on the top of our ear wire. And now we're going to tie on our smaller pom-pom onto the top of this ear wire. So I'm going to go ahead and thread my tapestry needle, same way I did before. So basically we're just making a double-ended pom-pom ear wire situation. Same method, we're just going to create that loop using our needle nose pliers on the top of the ear wire and then tie on our smaller pom-pom on the top. So same method here, I just threaded that string through. I'm going to use my pliers to kind of tighten down that loop I made just to make sure everything's nice and secure. So just give that a good pinch to make sure your pom-pom's not going to come undone. And then just secure those tails, tie them in a knot, and then we can trim them just like we did before. So at this point, we're almost done. Still super easy, right guys? It's not difficult. I know it looks complex and intense, but it's really not. It's just a matter of making poms and tying them onto stuff. So once we have that smaller pom-pom secure, you can see that these two are attached by that ear wire in the middle. And now we're just going to take one of our earring hoops by Hildy and Joe, and we're going to just loop it through that smaller pom-pom. Same way we did in the very first style through the center of that pom-pom. And now these are ready to wear. Super easy, very similar to the first style, but a little bit more drama, a little bit more volume. And you can see how those look. I am so excited to wear these earrings all summer, all different styles, all different outfits. You could dress them up, you could wear them to the beach. They're just so fun and whimsical and really easy to make. I know that you have tons of yarn scraps laying around in your craft room, and now you have a way to use them. Isn't that awesome? And I bet everyone's going to ask you where you got those cool, fun earrings. I hope you guys loved this video as much as I did. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.